Guillermo. Emil, I'm up to you. A little late today because we were bogged down watching the President of the United States take over the District of Columbia. He didn't take over the District of Columbia on January 6, 2021, when there was a real threat to America, a real threat to democracy, and when five police officers died. Some committed suicide after that day, but it was all in connection to the events of January 6th. He watched television. He was watching television on that day. But today, it is such an emergency in the District of Columbia that he's got to declare this state of emergency. And don't you know, this is the way it always goes. There's a state of emergency, we've got to do something. And only I can do it. Which we know isn't true, but he makes it true. And that's the way it is when you don't vote, or when people vote for the wrong thing. Oh, they think they're going to get a drop in the price of eggs, or the cost of living, or the affordability in America. But no, instead we get tariffs and we get things like this, which is just a trial run for essentially the policing, the hyper-policing of America. Don't you know that's really what this is? The stats, CFDT 34, convicted felon Donald Trump 34, because sometimes we forget. And we shouldn't forget. He is CFDT 34. He just went on talking about, the crime in D.C., it's worse than Bogota, Colombia. Lima, Peru, worse than Mexico City, he said. And the implication was these are cartel, drug-infested, crime-ridden cities, and D.C.'s worse than that. And the only criminal that no one has really been able to stop is living at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So, you see, we are witnessing this, and what do? Well, I come on here and I say, think about this. Think about what's happening here. We have CFDT 34 doing a trial run of his version of a police state, as if the $11 billion that is now going to fund ICE, because thanks to that big, beautiful bill, it's an $11 billion enterprise, ICE. And notice how many times that Trump used immigration as, we stopped the border, now we got to fix crime in the cities. And, cities like New York, LA, Chicago, all the blue cities. They have problems. They have problems there. We're gonna let the cops be cops. Let the cops be cops. Let the police be police. We're gonna send in the FBI, the National Guard. We're gonna militarize the DC cops. I mean, this is a kind of sad thing in a democracy. So I just want to say I'm going to Canada as a coincidence to participate in the Edmonton Fringe Festival. And you should see if you're near Edmonton in Canada, it's not Edinburgh, which is in Scotland. This is Edmonton, which is in Canada, Alberta. It is not the Mecca for fringe performers, which is Edinburgh in Scotland, but it is, I would say Edmonton. Edmonton. The data says it is the largest fringe festival in North America. And I'm happy to be there, happy to have been selected by the Canadian Association of Fringe Festivals. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited because my show, Emil Amok 69, Everything's Flipped, is all about how do you cope with this 69 world where who knows what CFDT 34 is going to do today. I mean, he uses fake crime statistics. I mean, they might be real, but they're irrelevant. And they don't really prove the point that, oh, we need an emergency. And the law, the little known law, the Home Rule Act of 1973, is all about, you know, the executive's justification for taking over, and that justification's in doubt. So no doubt we're going to see some kind of legal thing that's going to challenge what he's done. But meanwhile, he can do it for what, I think 45 days, and then he can extend it if he wishes. And you know he's going to do it if he can get away with it, unless the court says, oh, you can't do that. Where's the emergency? Where are your facts? And this is the way Trump does business. So it's not really an emergency, although it's sad that a Doge cohort of Donald Trump was beaten and robbed. You mentioned that case. That case made the news a couple weeks ago. But it's not an emergency. Because if it were truly an emergency, he would have used the Home Rule Act on January 6, 2021. He did not. So why is he doing it? Oh, we know why he's doing it. Epstein. He doesn't want to say the word Epstein. He wants Epstein obliterated. There's a court ruling today, a judge saying, oh, no, you can't release those grand jury files, even if you redact them, because there's nothing new there. So he's up to the whole manipulation, but it does put Epstein in the news today, but not the big story. The big story is, this is the big distraction. It's the militarization of the DC police with questionable facts. Everyone says DC crime is down. Every reputable data collector of crime will say, hey, there's crime, but the DC criminal rates crime rates are actually very low compared to the recent past. The trend is going down, but Trump thinks this is a good time to distract us with the federalization of the DC cops, which makes one wonder, is this just the dress rehearsal? Well, we had a dress rehearsal. Coincidentally, they're having a case in the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco on whether or not Trump was right or proper to send in the Marines to LA. California's state AG, Rob Bonta, Gavin Newsom, they're arguing that no, you got to go through the governor. You can't. It's like you can't be Putin-esque in America. You can't overrun the sovereignty of a state. Not in America. You got to go through the governor. You got to go through the elected officials, and this is why DC is kind of important here, because Trump is acting awfully Putin-esque, awfully Putin-y. And, because he's acting like Putin and DC, California, sovereign entities are in the role of Ukraine. How do you think that meeting on Friday is going to go when he meets with Putin but not Zelensky? It's going to be a big feather in Putin's cap, and it's going to be a way that Putin and Trump can say, hey, look what I did. I went over and federalized our nation's capital. Ha! What you do, Vladimir? I'm just saying, I'm not looking forward to that meeting on Friday. I mean, at least in terms of me being anything. But Trump showed today where he stands in the overall, who can be a bully over a sovereign entity. I mean, he's using a law so he can do it in DC, that home rule law. He can't do it in California. He did it anyway. The judge today said, no, you can't do that. We'll see how that goes. But everything that Trump wants to do is unlawful, illegal, unconstitutional. Got to get into the court system, and there Trump has all his ducks lined up in a row all the way up to the Supreme Court. So what does this mean for America's slide toward autocracy? It's not looking good, but if you aren't alarmed, you should be. And what do you do once you're alarmed? Well, you contact your elected representatives. You go out there and you vote next time if you didn't vote this time. You go out there and talk with your friends, your relatives, your neighbors, and you get them excited about your perspective. Instead, what's happening is people generally button up. Don't say anything. You got to say something. You got to say something. Anyway, I'm going to go up to Canada, and I'm not going to bother them with this 51st state baloney that Trump likes to talk about. But I will talk about how maybe the 51st state should be D.C., how D.C. should be respected, how the representatives of D.C. who are voted, the council, they should have a say on whether or not their cops are taken over and federalized. And if it's what? It's limited. The home rule thing only allows for what? Oh, actually, it allows for 48 hours. You can only do it for 48 hours. Excuse me, I said, but you can extend it to as long as 45 days. It all depends on what the emergency is. If there's no emergency, I wonder if we're still going to have this 48-hour emergency federalization of the cops by Wednesday. Right, Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday. Maybe by Thursday morning, is it all going to be resolved? But this is what happens when you rule by fiat and no one pushes back. The adults in the room don't say, hey, I think you ought to think about this. I mean, even when, I remember during the Black Lives Matter, protests, Trump had people out, he had the guard, he had people in uniform and trucks brought into the White House. It looked pretty bad. Remember that? What was that, 2017? I just think right now there's no one standing up to him. Kash Patel, I mean, he's the only person of color up there I saw. Funny, when he was up there in the press conference, the news conference, he said, oh, the murder rate is low. That's what we're doing. We're beating down crime. Oh, well, that's antithetical to what you're saying, that we need the policing in D.C. because crime is up. A lot of contradictions. So, but you know why we're doing this, right? You know why Trump is doing this. It's because he needs a distraction. And the distraction is he doesn't want to talk about Epstein. But like I said, the Epstein matter came up today in the news. It's not going to be the main story, but people have been thinking about it. And if the judge isn't going to let him put out those grand jury, well, I guess that means Trump's going to have to put out the files, release the files. They have his name. Maybe his name will be redacted, but everyone will know that, oh, Jeffrey Epstein's best friend during this 10-year period where they were best friends. Well, this is the same period where Jeffrey Epstein was taking advantage of literally hundreds of underage teenage girls, 14 to 18, because at 18 they lose their sparkle, they develop free will, and as an object of desire for a pedophile, it's just downhill. The thing is, even with redactions, whatever gets released is going to be pretty telling. Because, when it comes to pedophilia, it's not about sex. It's about power and the abuse of power. And in so many ways, Donald Trump has shown he has this predilection for an abuse of power. He showed it today. when he was like, it was like a celebration in that crowded White House press briefing room, saying, "Oh, we've never had so many people. Oh, good thing we were building this ballroom. Everything's all about Trump. This is an historic thing. Nothing like this has ever happened. And that's not a good thing. That is a sad thing for America." So we'll see what happens. 48 hours. That's all this home rule law of 1973 allows for, unless you go through Congress, unless you go through the formal channels to say it's not just an executive's whim. There's justification, but there's no justification for this. This may just be a 48-hour flu, a 48-hour virus, and then Trump drinks bleach and he feels better after this. I don't know, but this is what happens. And what scares me is that the way he was talking about other cities like New York and LA, and he even mentioned Oakland. I write for a paper in Oakland and highlighted it. He said, "Oh, Baltimore and Oakland, oh, those cities are there." What was his phrase? His phrase was, they're he says, "We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. So far gone, they're not so far gone." I mean, Oakland has some problems. Baltimore has some. I've been to both cities. Good times and bad. I've been fearful in both cities. I've also had great times in both cities. Oakland's coming up. I was in San Francisco this past week. San Francisco's, in some ways, what Trump is doing with DC is what Fox and all the MAGA right tried to do to San Francisco. Oh, the homeless and people defecating, they're terrible. So that's the narrative. Beware of that. It's a lie. I've lived in DC. I've visited it as a tourist. I've lived there 9 years. Well, actually, just outside. But I lived outside DC in the DC, the DMV, they call it now. But I worked in DC. It's a world-class city still. And it doesn't deserve what it's getting from Donald Trump. Although, DC Mayor Bowser, I think she kind of capitulated there. When she could have stood strong at the beginning. Now, it's sort of fait accompli. She said, "Well, we're going to deal with this. We're going to see what happens." 48 hours. And then it goes to the official channels. And who knows what happens. All right, so I'm going to end this, but this may be the last live thing I do for a while. Check this space. Also check Substack for new columns. Also Inquirer.net. I really think it's just a distraction because he wants everyone to talk about something other than Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump. And, the Putin-Zelensky thing, well, unclear whether or not Zelensky is going to be part of that meeting. But the fact that it's taking place in Alaska, it's going to be a feather in Putin's cap. I don't know what Trump's going to get out of it, except he'll be able to say, "Yeah, well, I took care of those people in D.C. You respect me now, Vladimir?" I know, bro talk, right? First time that they've met in person since Helsinki, 2018. And if you recall what happened in Helsinki, Trump embarrassed himself. He dismissed intel that said that Russia interfered with the election. Said, "Hey, I'm not going to listen to my spies. I talked to Vladimir. He's right here. He told me he didn't do it. I believe him." That's why you have spies, Mr. President. Because people like Putin lie. You know about lying. Mr. Non-factual president. Mr. Not based on the truth president. Everyone's scared to call Trump a liar, but in fact, that's what he is. All right. One more plug for the Edmonton Fringe. I'm going to be there August 15th through the 24th in Edmonton. Never been there. I've been through Winnipeg, now Edmonton. I like this part of Canada. Beautiful. The prairie, and then Alberta. I haven't been there yet, but it's nice there. And then I'll go to Vancouver. I mean, Canada. I mean, I wrote a column on this not too long ago, about a week ago. Go to Canada and see how much America has changed. There was one sign on a wall at a university I was at. It said, "Anti-racism is no gray area." You put a sign like that up at a university in the United States, you can get fined about $1 million, right? I mean, what kind of woke stuff is this? They're still woke in Canada. Thank goodness. All right. Edmonton Fringe, August 15th through the 24th. Check it out at tickets.fringetheater.ca. Tickets.fringetheater.ca. And then go to event/601:6535. Or just go to tickets.fringetheater.ca and look for Emil Amok, EMIL-AMOK. You'll find me and a way to get to my tickets if you happen to be in Edmonton. And if you are going up there, lucky person, escape the heat. I mean, it's nice up there. I mean, comfortable, 70s. Of course, I wouldn't be saying that in January, February, but in August, sunsets at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., something. I mean, up north, you get those late sunsets. It's nice. I think it might rain a couple of days when I'm up there, but if it's anything like Winnipeg, very pleasant, and very, very beautiful, and happy to be part of the Edmonton Fringe. Okay, we're going to end with a little loving kindness, because that's what we do. We do a little meditation. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal. Takeout.